Good morning. Today's administrative meeting will come to order. We have a light docket today and no administrative announcements unless any of my colleagues have opening statements. Seeing none. We have minutes to approve from two prior administrative meetings on the 22nd and 27th of February. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the meeting minutes for February 22nd and 27th as submitted.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The minutes are approved. I'd just like to make two notes. Next week at the administrative meeting, afterwards at 1 o'clock, we will be having a hearing regarding energy storage, a proposal that was submitted by a number of our utilities. And we'll also have our work group leader, Judge Kristen Lawrence, do a presentation before we hear from the parties. Final comments in that docket are due this coming Friday, March the 8th. And then the following week, we will not be having an administrative meeting that Wednesday. Madam Secretary, the consent agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. On the consent agenda, there's 5 items. The first item is Birch Communications of the Northeast, LLC, DBA Birch Communications, filed on January 7, 2019, notification of name change and replacement tariffs. Item 2 is Crown Castle NG Atlantic, LLC, filed on January 30, 2019, request to cancel certain authorities to provide resold inter-exchange and facility-based local exchange telecommunications services in Maryland and cancel certain tariffs. Item 3 is Masscom Inc., DBA Mass Communications, filed on February 14, 2019, notice of name and address change and replacement tariffs. Item 4 is Community Purchasing Alliance Cooperative, filed on January 30, 2019, application for license to supply electricity or electric generation services in the state of Maryland. Item 5 is PNP Paribas, filed on February 11, 2019, request to amend letter of credit to change entity from Spirian Energy Corp. to Tomorrow Energy Corp.
Thank you. Do commissioners have questions on any of these items? Commissioner O'Donnell.
Just one question. Can someone explain to me the nature of the Community Purchasing Alliance Cooperative on item number 4? What is that? There's a lot of loaded terms in the corporate title there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. Michael Jang on behalf of staff. So the cooperative is just a group of entities that actually own the overall business themselves. So the customers that they are serving, they actually own the company themselves.
So it's a cooperative in the sense, just like the cooperatives we regulate that have service territories.
Yeah.
The subscribers are the owners.
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Okay, that's enough. I just wanted to get a sense of what this corporate entity was. Thank you.
No problem.
Seeing no other questions, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For item number 1, I would move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing and direct the company to file clean copies of the revised tariff pages with an effective date of March 6, 2019. For item number 2, I'd move we rescind the requested authorities to operate in Maryland and cancel the respective tariffs. For item number 3, I move we accept the tariff revisions for filing and direct the company to file clean copies of the revised tariff pages with an effective date of March 15, 2019. For item number 4, I move we grant the company a license to operate as an electricity supplier in Maryland, limited to broker services for the customer classes and service territories applied for and recommended by staff. That we further direct the company to provide marketing and training materials specific to its Maryland operations to the Commission staff and Office of People's Counsel 30 days prior to utilization of the materials in Maryland, and direct the company to file notice with the Commission within 30 days of any changes to the information in the application. And finally, for item number 5, I move we accept the change and direct the Executive Secretary to sign the amendment.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The 5 motions are approved. Thank you. Madam Secretary, is it possible to take 6 and 7 together?
Yes, they'll be taken together. For the administrative agenda, item number 6 is Delmarva Power and Light Company, filed on January 31, 2019, revised tariff pages. The company proposes to implement standard offer service rates for the residential time of use pilot program. Similarly, item number 7 is Potomac Electric Power Company's filing of the revised tariff pages, also proposing to implement standard offer service rates for the residential time of use pilot.
Thank you. Is counsel for the utility present, Mr. Seegers? Good morning. Mr. Baker.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners. Benjamin Baker on behalf of staff.
On January 31st, Potomac Electric Company and Delmarva Power and Light Company filed revised tariff pages to implement standard offer service rates for the time of use PC44 pilot. On May 7th, 2018, by letter order, the Commission had previously approved standard offer service time of use rates for PC44 with the understanding that the rates would change over time. The tariff pages filed on January 31st, 2019 update these rates to reflect corrections to the billing determinants and also remove the administrative charge from previously filed time of use rates as identified by the company in buck sheets filed in November, January, and now. Additionally, this filing updates the SOS cost for the time of use rates. Staff recommends the Commission accept the revised tariff pages for filing with an effective date of April 1st, 2019.
Thank you. Does Counsel for the Utilities have anything additional to add?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Matt Seegers appearing for Pepco and Delmarva. I have nothing to add, just here and along with my subject matter experts if you have any questions.
Thank you. Can you shed any light on the status of where the utilities stand with respect to being able to offer these rates on April 1st?
We are planning to implement our program on April 1st, Your Honor. So we are going full steam ahead towards that date.
Do you have the requisite number of ratepayers who will be participating in the TOUs?
Our recruitment efforts, they recently started, and they, unfortunately, I don't have customer recruitment numbers as of yet. That is, I can get back to you, Mr. Chairman, if you would like that information.
But recruitment has begun because April 1st is what, three weeks from now?
That is correct, Your Honor. We are in the midst of recruitment as we speak.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Richard.
I'm just interested, how are you going about recruiting? As a Pepco customer, I haven't seen it yet. Are you the radio, through the bill mailers, or how is that being done?
Our recruitment effort is essentially, it's two prongs. The first of which is that we are mailing out our invitation to take part in the pilot program. And that mailing is going out to any customer that was pre-selected through to take part in the program. And customers who are also aware of the pilot may also call us to opt in to take advantage of the rate. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, I don't know how many of those customers have taken part. And then the second part is through any emails that we have for customers. We're also doing email recruitment as well.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, apparently neither you or I received any invitations yet, so I don't know whether to be offended or not.
You are both welcome to contact us if you.
Okay, well,
would like
now
to
we
take
know
part
about this,
in-
so.
in rate.
All right. Commissioner Herman.
Mr. Seegers, the staff lists 3 different updates for both Pepco and Delmarva. It's a correction to the billing determinants to appropriately reflect on-peak hours. And so was that simply something that was a mistake the first time around, or is this something that came up?
I'm going to bring up our subject matter expert to talk a little bit more about what went on there.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Mr. Janoka.
Good morning, Commissioner. Yes, the correction to the billing determinants was the issue that we identified during the filing of our distribution time use rates. We had neglected to include, exclude weekends and holidays from our on-peak hours, and so we made that adjustment, and that was reflected in our distribution rate filing back in the end of December and early January.
So this is that same correction?
It's the same thing, just going forward. It's not a new correction.
Gotcha, thank you. And can you, or Mr. Baker, why is it that the companies, the PHI companies, are doing something slightly different than BGE? And is that something that is that a good thing, because that way we're trying different ways for the pilot? How did that come about that different Exelon companies are doing it different ways?
Is this in terms of how they're handling the capacity chart? Or I guess the ways they're handling it differently is BG is using using an average of the historic capacity split between standard cost, or between the energy cost and the capacity cost, while PHI is using just using the previous year's split. So that will lead to PHI having slightly more volatile rates. This came up, I don't think this methodology was ever discussed in the work group, and so the two of them just came up now while we were evaluating the buck sheets over the last year. I think this might help us in terms of maybe evaluating if one is more volatile than the other. From a pilot perspective, though, I can't tell you how this might impact the evaluation, which is something I would have to probably go back and talk with the work group about.
Right. But it's potentially, if the volatility, if customers react positively or negatively to the volatility, that might help us for the pilot purposes to say, well, we should then, when it, if it becomes a permanent rate, then say, you know what, let's go with the non-volatile rate.
Right. So
Or vice versa.
that could be an additional analysis that we can look at the end, where BG is holding the capacity price or more constant over time, while the PHI ones will be fluctuating.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Seeing no other questions, is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with respect to items number 6 and 7, I move that we accept the tariff revisions for filing with an effective date of April 1st, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motions are approved.
The last item on the agenda is Synergen Panorama LLC, filed on January 29, 2019. Request for a waiver for an additional extension of the operational deadline for 4 co-located community solar energy generation systems in Prince George's County, Maryland.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Annette Garofalo on behalf of Commission staff. Synergen is seeking an extension of its previously granted Commission waiver of the operational deadline under Comar 20 620304C2. The extension would run from March 26 to June 1, 2019. According to applicant, this further extension is required to account for winter weather that may make winter construction schedules difficult to maintain. Synergen's request is accompanied by photographs showing its projects in various stages of completion. Applicant points out that the Commission has routinely recognized winter construction as a basis for extension of many other projects in the Community Solar Program. Staff hesitates to rely on these previous rulings because each project has its own special circumstances. However, it is clear that Synergen has attempted to meet its March 25, 2019 deadline. Applicant is asking for less than 90 days in order to remain in the PEPCO queue of the Community Solar Program, and staff recommends that this additional time be granted.
Thank you, Ms. Garofalo. Counsel for the developer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Dave Bugelmans on behalf of Synergen Panorama LLC. I think staff's buck sheet and Mr. Garofalo's summary are accurate. I do have an update regarding the status of the projects. The projects are about 90% complete. Really what's left is some final site finalization and then the final inspections to begin operating. Again, what we've requested is a slight adjustment to the already adjusted deadlines. The projects have done everything possible to meet the adjusted March 25th date, but unfortunately winter weather has delayed things a bit. Really what we're trying to do here is ensure that the projects aren't arbitrarily excluded from the program. Again, they're very, very close to be able to begin operations. So thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bugelmans. You noted that the project is approximately 90% complete. When is your target date for the project to go live?
Right. So it's my understanding is the target is still March 26, which is reflected in our most recent request. Again, that's the target, and as you know, this has been a rough winter. Really, any additional weather events could push them past that. Again, we chose June 1st because that seems to have been recognized by staff and the Commission. We're trying to get enough wiggle room so we know that we can do this, while also not having to come back before the Commission. So we have built in a bit of a buffer there, and we tried to be reasonable with that. But again, we're just right up against the deadline for these projects.
Okay, so you estimate that you only actually really need 1 day if everything goes well, but out of abundance of being conservative, you're asking for June 1st.
That's correct. I mean, obviously, we don't want to have to try to do an emergency request and come in here and try to get approval, if we need it, right up against the deadline. So we're just trying to provide that extra buffer.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell.
So, Mr. Bugelmans, when I was growing up, I would go hunting, and the snow, when the snowfall was very light, it would be considered a hunter's snow. Not enough to do any damage, but certainly helpful for visibility. And the pictures that you've submitted with this, that Gordon Feinblatt has submitted with this filing, indicate to me to be a hunter's snow. That is, looks to me maybe half an inch of snow on the ground or less. It's not a deep snow. It's, how does that delay your construction? How do these pictures give me evidence that that is a valid reason for a weather delay?
So I have given that some thought, Commissioner, because I know you've asked about this in the past, and in particular the comparison to commercial development or residential development. I think one thing you have to keep in mind with the solar projects is one of the fundamental design principles is to avoid constructing impervious surface. So what these developers do is they maintain the dirt underneath the panels, and sometimes for instance, perimeter access roads, they have to pave or put down gravel. But for the most part, they just maintain the dirt underneath the panel arrays. So the issue is in winter, when you have snow, when you have freeze-thaw conditions, it just becomes a muddy mess and it slows things down. In contrast, if you're doing like a residential development, you have a concrete foundation. Once you put that in, they're working in the cold. It's not pleasant, but they're still able to do it. So it's just a different kind of construction. Really, you're working in a muddy field in the winter, and that's really, I think, what causes the issues here.
Be good to have your boots on, right?
I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this was filed January 29th, this request, and you say you lost 2.5 weeks due to winter weather of construction time. Was there an effort to make that time up between January 29th and March 6th?
That's my understanding. I mean, they've really done everything they can, and I think these photographs show that they were out there working when, if they had a little bit more room, perhaps they would have taken a few days off and allowed the conditions to improve. But again, they got to a point where the projected in-operation date was a day over the deadline. They tried to do everything they can, but it's just slightly past what the extension was for.
Yeah. So if you think you need a day, but you lost 2.5 weeks and maybe made up some of that ground. I don't know. Maybe it was padded in the beginning anyway. We've already given you one waiver, and you're asking for 90 days when you need a day. Why that long? It seems like, noting expression of frustration with these waivers that I've given over a long period of time, because there seems to be a cottage legal industry going on here with these things, that almost feels like you're toying with the commission on these things. Please respond.
So I can tell you these developers are not toying with the commission. I mean, I have a duty of candor with the commission to come in here and represent to you accurately what the needs of these developers are. In some cases, it's been issues, and I've said this many times, it's been issues obtaining financing due to projections over what's possible with winter construction and being able to meet the deadlines. In this case, the initial waiver request was because of permitting delays. Somehow this developer was able to obtain financing with the adjusted deadline, and now winter weather has, I think, here shown that they are unable to meet the adjusted deadline. So again, this is a pilot program. I think, if anything, I think this is a lesson learned for the commission with regards to program design. I think the way that this deadline is structured has been problematic, just because the developers have issues controlling once they begin construction when they can come out and begin operations. There's a lot of variables. So I understand it's frustrating. I understand we've been in here many times, but these have all been made in good faith, including this one.
Yeah, well, I certainly appreciate you teaching the commission a lesson on these pilot programs. I will tell you that, in my opinion, if I had my way, I would deny this, and I'm going to vote against this item. I won't ask the commission to vote against it. I don't know what the commission's going to do with this item, but I would return the favor in teaching a lesson to the development community that our rules are what they say they are, and they're not to be toyed with. If you need a day, don't ask for 90. and I would return the favor in teaching a lesson to the developers.
Understood, Commissioner. Thank you.
Do other commissioners have any questions? Commissioner Herman.
Good morning, Mr. Bugelman.
Morning.
So, is there anything besides construction that is delaying operation of the project, in terms of, there's nothing else, other than getting your inspections? It looks like you're almost ready to run. So is there anything else that might cause you to delay beyond the 1 day from a construction standpoint?
No, Your Honor. And again, with these projects, the COD date is key, and developers are always trying to speed up and achieve that as soon as possible, because that's when, in effect, they can begin receiving revenue for the project. So this is really it. Again, the whole point of this is to avoid a crisis where you have to come in a day before the deadline and try to somehow get before the commission, and basically line this deadline up with what a lot of the other projects have been adjusted to, which is June.
So there's if hypothetically the project is ready to be operated on March 28th, just picking a day, then the developer is going to just go ahead and get it operational, even though it has until June 1st. The developer will start it up prior to June 1st if it's ready.
Exactly. I believe every intent is to begin operations as soon as possible.
Okay.
This is really just a constructability issue.
Okay. And would the developer be amenable to sending a letter to the commission letting it know as soon as it is prepared to be operational?
Yes, Your Honor. I think that would be acceptable. For instance, with the initial waiver request, the commission granted, we provided an update on the beginning of construction, which we did, and I think we'd be more than happy to do that also for when they're able to begin commercial operations, to provide that check to the commission.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any additional questions? I recognize Commissioner O'Donnell's frustration. We see a lot of these requests for extensions on the docket. There's different causes. Obviously, we take each of these by a case-by-case basis. I also recognize that this is a pilot program, and we've learned some lessons. I think the developers have learned some lessons as we go through this, and perhaps if we'd had to do this all over again the first time, we would have made some changes up front to account for delays at the local level, and then delays that we're now seeing with respect to construction timelines and weather. But based on the application, I found a good cause to grant the extension. We know where Commissioner O'Donnell's vote is. Could the other commissioners provide their positions? Commissioner Richard.
I think you stated that very well. I intend to vote for the extension.
Thank you. Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also would agree. I would vote in favor of the extension.
Commissioner Herman?
Yes, I would also vote in favor of the extension.
And I would ask Commissioner O'Donnell if he's changed his position.
I decidedly have not, and kind of foresaw where this was going to go, but I want to send a strong message that the commission is not to be toyed with nor taught lessons lightly.
Duly noted. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For item number 8, I move we grant the company's request for a waiver of COMAR 20.62.03.04C, parentheses 2, and the current deadline for the extension of the operational deadlines for its Prince George's County CSEGs be extended to June 1st, 2019.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no additional business before the commission this morning, have a great day. This meeting is adjourned.